Hello, my name is Russell Myers. Welcome to Issues Unite. So, I have previously done a series some time back about universal health care being the best option. Now, the majority of Americans, at least 70%, probably closer to 90 to 95% of Americans, actually support the idea of universal health care, which is being referred to as Medicare for all, but I'm going to stick with universal health care because I don't associate the concept with one person's name. I've been in favor of universal health care since the 1980s, long before I became a nurse, and you know when when it I actually saw it in action in Europe. Um, that was when I became in favor of universal health care. And millions of other veterans have seen it in action in other countries. So, how you can be not in favor of universal health care when you compare the two systems, I really don't understand. Anyway, it's very obvious that, Trump is against this, but Biden is also against universal health care. He's in favor of widening, expanding the ACA. Now, one thing I'm going to say that I agree with Trump was the individual mandate, eliminating that. And that was a good move because the ACA is really nothing but a mandatory welfare program for the insurance companies. What Biden does not propose is a cap on deductibles, co-payments, etc., and not putting any controls on what they really must cover. The insurance companies try to find ways to not pay for the one thing or another. Um, if you are paying $500 a month for medical insurance, that's $3,000 a year. And then on top of that, you got a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 deductible. So the insurance doesn't pay a penny until you reach that deductible. And there is no legislation out there that puts any cap. There is no legislation proposed which puts a cap on that deductible. Let me point out that in 2016, while the ACA was in force, fully in force, 40,000 Americans died from lack of medical care. They couldn't afford it. This was a big debate in 2016, before Trump took office. So you can't blame all of this on Trump. In 2016, over 2 million Americans declared bankruptcy because of medical bills. So you come up to all this stuff. How is this beneficial? If you don't need enough medical care that you pass the deductible threshold, then your insurance premiums are a profit to the insurance companies, but it's an expense to you that gives you no benefit whatsoever. So then, even if, let's say you get cancer, well, an insurance company looks at it. Well, you don't have the cancer rider, which would cost you another $200 a month. So we're not going to pay for your treatment. Or you do have the cancer rider. Okay, we'll pay 80% of your care after your deductible. So if your care winds up costing $200,000, you're liable for $40,000 of that. What if you only make $40,000 a year? What are you going to do? And $40,000 plus the $3,000 deductible. And then medications may be considered separately. You have a dental problem? Oh, well, you don't have dental insurance. We're not going to pay for that. You have an eye problem. You don't have vision coverage. We're not going to pay for that. In what country is dental and vision not considered part of medical care? Pretty much only in the U.S. Only. Of all developed nations, we are the only one that consider dental and vision to be separate from medical care. So, hold on a minute. Let's say you get injured in a car accident. The insurance company looks at it. Oh, you were injured in a car accident. The other driver was uninsured. And I see you don't have uninsured driver coverage. So the other person is liable for your care, but they don't have insurance. We're not paying for it. You're going to have to sue the other driver, who probably doesn't have insurance because they can't afford it. So what are your odds? Who's going to be liable for your care? You are. With universal health care, your care is covered. Your care is covered. That's it. You got injured in a car crash. It's covered. You have a dental problem. It's covered. You have a vision problem. It's covered. You have cancer. It's covered. There's no deductible. There might be a copayment. Your medications are covered. That's what universal health care is about. It's universal health care. It won't cover elective operations, like if you want a nose job or a boob job or a butt lift. That shouldn't be covered. It's not medical care. You need, psychological therapy for depression or anxiety. It's covered. So this is the difference between the ACA and universal health care, Medicare for all, whatever you want to call it. Now, Biden says that he will institute a Medicaid public option for those who cannot afford health insurance. Who decides whether you can afford health insurance? Basically, he does. Doesn't matter if, you are already paying medical bills or student loans or what have you. Doesn't matter what your expenses are if you're making above the absolute bare minimum that will allow you to get this option. And then what happens if your pay winds up increasing to just above that margin, where you're no longer eligible for the Medicaid option? Well, now you've got to pay the insurance premiums. So whatever pay increase that you just cheered about gets taken out of your pay, and you don't have an option to refuse it, except to pay a fine to the government, which I'm going to say. I refused the insurance coverage under the ACA most of the time that it was implemented, and yet I wound up paying, over $1,000 a year as a fine. Well, who benefited from the fine? Who was the recipient of that fine? The government turned around and handed it to the insurance companies. So even if you refused insurance, you still paid the insurance companies. That's how it works. That's what the ACA is all about. I will say one good thing about the ACA was that it implemented a cap on profits for insurance companies. That cap was 20%, which meant that, they could make a 20% profit. 20 cents of every dollar you paid on your premiums was profit. Well, what could they count as an expense? They could count CEO and corporate executive pay, the stock packages handed as addition to compensation for corporate executives. You were paying for investor dividends. These are all considered expenses. Advertising. You look at advertising for insurance companies, and they spend tens of millions of dollars a day on advertising. Television, radio, mail, internet, etc. Billboards, you're paying, that's part of the expense that your premium is paying for. It's not paying for your medical care. This is what you're paying for. Now, people say they don't want the government involved in their health care. Well, let's say that you do have cancer, you do have something that your insurance company should pay for, and they still refuse. Who are you going to turn to enforce this, to make them pay for it? Guess what? You're going to turn to the government. There's nobody else that has any power over them. One way or another, the government gets involved for your benefit. What matters is the legislation that is in your benefit. Some people, I've said it before, want to get rid of government. Well, who will you turn to in the case that you've been paying your insurance and they should pay for something, but they refuse to? Who are you going to turn to if there is no government? You don't have anywhere to turn. There would be no place to turn. If you don't have insurance, who's going to pay the bills? Who's going to make a doctor even treat you if you don't have money to pay without government? Even in the worst of circumstances, there is no legislation, there is no means by which you can force any doctor or hospital to treat you without government. This is what government is for. It's what it's supposed to be for. I'm not going to say it's really that it's working in our favor that much, but that's why we have to be mobilized. Another thing that your premiums pay for is stock repurchases to drive up the value of the stock for the benefit of the corporate executives and the rich investors. The rich investors demand ever increasing profit margins. So even without a cap, if you remove that cap, which so they can make 30%, 40%, 50% profits, and that is all taken out of what? Your premiums. So there's no cap on premiums, no cap on deductibles. He's not proposing any of this. This is not what he's in favor of. He's in favor of you paying insurance coverage, insurance premium for the benefit of the corporations. Oh yeah, something else you're paying for is the commissions every month to the insurance agent. That's considered a cost. It's not medical care, but you're still paying for it. So think about all of this going forward from here. You can vote for Biden because but Trump. Yeah, Trump on that is actually worse. Not a question, not a debate. I agree, Trump is worse. But as far as what Biden is proposing, it's not in your favor. It is not. So keep this in mind. You want to push Biden to the left? I'm all with you. But we're going to have to fight for it. And that fight starts now. It does not start 4 years from now. It starts now. Please share this video. Subscribe to the channel. Talk about these subjects. And if you can, please donate $1 a month to help expand the channel. And I'll catch you in the next one.